October 22nd, 2029, 3:12 a.m. Cedar Valley's Substation 14 hums quietly. Situated between tree lines and farmland, managing 40% of the region's power. No humans inside, only AI-assisted systems built to self-correct in milliseconds. At 3:13, a voltage recalibration request pings the system. Valid credentials, internal source. So the load rerouting begins, gradual, precise, until it spikes. 3:16 a.m., the first overload. Transformers hiss, then hum, then scream. The cooling systems flood with coolant. A spark jumps, then ignites. The entire left bay bursts in a white-blue flash. The explosion is visible 12 miles away. In town, lights flicker, hospitals scramble, a freight train halts mid-track. The substation's final log entry, load balancing achieved. By sunrise, it's blamed on failing hardware, but cyber teams trace the breach and admin's real credentials, used while his laptop sat offline, last traced to an IP address somewhere in the South China Sea. A zero-day exploit. Precise, purposeful. And hours later, a file surfaces on the dark web. 38 more substations. Coordinates, load specs, access keys. This wasn't an accident, it was espionage. Imagine the lights going out. Not a total blackout, not a major catastrophe, but just enough. Enough to disrupt your day, enough to spoil your food, enough to make you wonder, why? Tonight, we expose power play, the geopolitics of grid cyber attacks, where the unseen hand of cyber warfare uses your local power outage as a political weapon. We rely on electricity for everything. It powers our homes, our hospitals, our economies. But what if a nation-state adversary, rather than launching a full-scale military strike, chose a different path? What if they orchestrated sophisticated, persistent cyber attacks to cause intermittent, unpredictable, localized power outages across a rival nation or specific dissenting regions? These aren't just technical glitches. These are grid shadows designed to slowly, relentlessly erode public morale and trust in government without ever firing a shot. Welcome to the new frontier of grey zone conflict. The power grid isn't just poles and wires anymore. It's a vast, intricate network, increasingly digitized and interconnected. From massive power plants generating electricity, through high-voltage transmission lines, down to the local distribution substations that bring power to your home. Almost every aspect is managed by sophisticated industrial control systems, ICS, and SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. These systems use sensors, remote controls, and advanced software to monitor flow, detect faults, and optimize distribution. Smart meters at your home, smart grids in your neighborhood. This digitization brings efficiency, but it also creates a massive cyber attack surface. Every connected component, every piece of software becomes a potential point of entry for an adversary looking to turn off your lights. Here's your first fact. The concept of cyber attacks causing power blackouts isn't theoretical. It's already happened, multiple times, and it was a chilling warning to the world. In December 2015 and 2016, Ukraine experienced unprecedented power outages directly attributed to Russian state-sponsored hackers. These weren't just simple hacks. They involved sophisticated malware like Indestroyer that directly targeted the industrial control systems of the power companies, manipulating circuit breakers and taking substations offline. These were the first confirmed cyber attacks to cause widespread physical disruption to a power grid. While they were hours-long local blackouts, they proved the undeniable capability of nation-states to weaponize energy infrastructure. It showed the world that turning off the lights can be a strategic act of war. Unlike a single, catastrophic grid failure designed to cripple an entire nation, the grid shadow tactic is far more insidious. It's about intermittent, unpredictable, localized power outages. The attacker isn't aiming for immediate destruction, they're aiming for sustained harassment. Imagine your power going out for an hour every few days, but never at the same time, and never in the exact same neighborhoods. One week it's your office, the next it's your home. The next, it's the local grocery store. It's designed to be annoying, frustrating, economically damaging, but just below the threshold that would trigger a full-scale military response. This isn't a knockout blow. It's 1,000 tiny cuts, bleeding an adversary dry without them even realizing they're in a full-blown conflict. The strategic goals behind these grid shadows are deeply political and psychological. The constant inconvenience causes immense psychological strain on the population. People become irritable, anxious, and exhausted by the uncertainty. Basic tasks become Herculean efforts. This relentless disruption is designed to erode public morale and trust in government. Citizens begin to question their leaders' ability to provide basic services, even if the government isn't directly at fault for the attacks. Why can't our leaders fix this? Why are we constantly suffering? These questions, amplified by social media and internal divisions, can lead to widespread discontent, protests, and a fertile ground for political instability. Beyond the psychological toll, these localized blackouts create a significant economic drag. Small businesses, especially those without backup generators, are hit hard by unpredictable downtime. Restaurants lose perishable food, retailers can't process sales, and offices can't operate. Manufacturing facilities face disruptions and damage to equipment from power surges when the grid flickers back on. The cumulative effect isn't a single headline-grabbing financial disaster, but a slow, persistent drain on local and regional economies. Supply chains become less reliable. Investor confidence wanes. Over time, this constant economic drag can severely weaken a nation's overall economic resilience, making it more susceptible to other forms of pressure. Here's your second fact, and it's why this tactic is so appealing to nation-states. Attributing cyber attacks, especially sophisticated ones, is notoriously difficult, bordering on impossible. Hackers can route their attacks through multiple countries, use stolen infrastructure, and employ false flags. Techniques designed to make the attack appear to originate from a different adversary. This makes it incredibly hard for the victim nation to definitively prove who is behind the grid shadows. Without clear attribution, international condemnation is often muted, and retaliatory measures are difficult to justify. It provides adversaries with plausible deniability, allowing them to inflict damage without triggering a conventional military response. This is the very definition of grey zone conflict. Grey zone conflict is where state and non-state actors employ tactics that fall below the threshold of conventional warfare, yet are designed to achieve strategic objectives. It's war without war. These aren't declared conflicts, but rather persistent campaigns of coercion and destabilization. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, like grid shadows, are a prime example. They cause real-world harm, but they lack the overt aggression of a missile strike, making a traditional military response difficult to justify. This ambiguity makes the grey zone an attractive avenue for adversaries seeking to undermine rivals, influence internal politics, or test defences, all while maintaining a facade of deniability. It's a silent, constant pressure designed to wear down a nation from within. The proliferation of grid shadow tactics has profound implications for international relations. It creates a constant state of tension and suspicion, eroding trust between nations without clear lines of conflict. Retaliation becomes a game of tit-for-tat cyber attacks, each one harder to attribute than the last, leading to a perpetual cycle of low-level digital aggression. There's also an inherent escalation risk. What starts as a series of inconveniences could, either by accident or design, cross a line into a truly catastrophic event. triggering a much larger, more overt conflict. The ambiguity of the grey zone makes managing de-escalation incredibly difficult, as no one truly takes responsibility. Here's your final fact. The threat isn't just theoretical for future conflicts. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are already happening at an astonishing and rapidly increasing rate. Between January 2023 and January 2024 alone, critical infrastructure worldwide sustained over 420 million cyber attacks, equivalent to 13 attacks per second. That's a 30% increase from the previous year. While not all of these are grid shadows by nation states, this statistic reveals the sheer volume of malicious activity targeting the very systems that keep our societies running. It demonstrates the pervasive digital assault on our energy, transportation, and telecommunication sectors. The grey zone is not a future concept. It's the current reality. And the volume of attacks means our critical systems are constantly being tested, probed, and exploited. So, what can nations do to defend against these constant grid shadows? It requires a multifaceted approach focused on both security and resilience. Building in redundancy across the grid, ensuring that if one part goes down, another can pick up the load, is crucial. This means having backup systems, manual override capabilities for automated controls, and alternative energy sources for critical facilities. Enhanced cybersecurity practices are non-negotiable. This includes implementing zero-trust architectures, conducting continuous real-time monitoring of industrial control systems, and rigorously patching and updating all connected devices. Many critical infrastructure systems were never built with modern cyber threats in mind, so this requires a massive, ongoing overhaul and investment. Given the difficulty of attribution and the cross-border nature of cyber attacks, intelligence sharing and international cooperation are absolutely vital. Governments and critical infrastructure operators need to share real-time threat intelligence, indicators of compromise, and attack methodologies rapidly and effectively. International bodies and alliances must establish clear protocols for information exchange and coordinated responses. This means working together on joint cyber defense exercises, developing shared attribution methodologies, and presenting a united front against adversaries. The defense against grey zone grid attacks cannot be fought by individual nations alone. It requires a collective, global effort. The era of grid shadows is upon us. A new form of cyber warfare where localized blackouts become a silent weapon, eroding trust, stifling economies, and testing the very resilience of nations. This isn't just about protecting infrastructure, it's about safeguarding public morale, economic stability, and the democratic process itself. The choice is clear. Do we succumb to the psychological and economic pressure of this grey zone conflict, or do we prioritize the fortification of our critical infrastructure with unprecedented urgency and collaboration? How do you think societies can best withstand the constant psychological strain of unpredictable cyber attacks? What role do you think ordinary citizens play in national cyber defense? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Want to know more about the broader impact of cybercrime? Click here to watch my video on weaponizing media AI.